Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
What's happening, people? Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast. I'm here with Amer The Hammer, very well-known coach here in Canada. If you don't know who he is, I will have his Instagram and everything linked below. Please give him a follow. He's putting out a ton of good content. Obviously, from a coaching and athlete's perspective, he's got it out there. But now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, there's a lot of good information that you're sharing. So, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, bro.
So first off, let's talk about coaching. Obviously, that's your big thing, right? You competed beforehand, but now your main niche is coaching. So let's get into what coaching looks like for you right now and maybe the last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're always very busy. We have 15 employees within our companies. So we're always very busy, but obviously this, I'm not going to deny it. Or hide the fact that obviously this took a hit on our business. But the way I position it to my clients, the way I position it to my coaches, just being transparent always with everyone. We've never been in the business of programming. We've never been in the business of, even fitness coaching necessarily. Yep. Our business has always been coaching people to be their best, whether that's coaching people to be their best in fitness or whether that's coaching people to be their best in business, whatever it may be. I think the principles of it are all universally transferable. So we've always been in that business, and as a result of that, people still have a need for coaching. Yep. There's been times where people will email us or, DM us or message us and say, like, how much for a one-off program? And it's like, that's not the work we do. The work we do is helping connect the dots between where you are and where you need to be through coaching you. So that it hasn't, even though people can't work out and don't have access to a gym, actually, I think that's they're in a greater need for our coaching because we can actually guide them because it's not as brainless anymore. They can't just show up to the gym and try to figure it out on their own. They actually need more coaching, right? So in terms of that, it's looking at it from that perspective, I don't believe it's changed our business at all. Now, obviously there are no fitness competitions, which is a big part of our business. Yep. So, there are no shows, at least in the next 3 months, I'd say. I've been predicting that. So, though a lot of those people aren't coaching right now, which is understandable. And we have a lot of clients that, work at restaurants or bars or, they're servers or just whatever jobs and, retail employees. So it's understandable that a lot of these people don't have an income right now either. So it has affected us, but it doesn't. And to me, that's not a failure, and that's not embarrassing to say, because I've always been in the business of I've always been in the business of just adapting to the landscape. Yep. When I first started this, there were no clients anyway. So this is nothing new to me. To try to figure it out when you have no tools at your disposal.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talked about it's not just a one-off plan, right? And I think that's where coaching is starting to change for the better, I would like to hope, because I think it very much used to be, here's your workout, here's your diet, have fun, and you might have heard from your coach once a month maybe or something to that effect, and it was very much that's where cookie-cutter programming came from, right? So I think that's super cool that you're doing that, because I think people are starting to see that now and the value with getting more.
Yeah, it's just more value, right? And I think that's always what people have needed. People have always needed somebody to show them the direction that they need to be going in, right? It's like I've always wanted that in my life, just to have someone to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Yeah. Is this the right choice? Is it not? I don't need someone to do the work for me. I don't need someone giving me shortcuts. I need guidance. I need direction. These are things that people need, and now people need that more than ever. Support. Yeah. People need these sort of things now more than ever. Obviously with times like this, crisis like this, comes mental health issues. So people need coaching now more than ever. It's just finding and having clients that obviously one can afford it, which is probably the biggest obstacle for people right now. Because not barely anyone's working. So, but there are people with money, there are people that have money, and there are people that maybe don't have as much money, but still see the value in it and how much value it's providing to their life in this particular moment. And that's, people figure it out. So, obviously we've been accommodating to clients, but I'm not one of these coaches that's going to go online and start posting, like, giving discounts, taking on new clients. If you do that, cool. I'm not against it. In terms of other people doing it, it's my personal preference. Like, the way I see it is, if you're going to do that, give your current clients a discount. Give them a discount for their loyalty and for sticking by you during this time, right?
Yeah, and you talked about at the beginning there just people needing coaching elsewhere. Like, you can still follow a meal plan, you can still work out in some form or another, but now this is when the head games start to play, right? You don't have that outlet of going to the gym, or you don't have that sense of structure with work, right? Like, I've seen so many people like, oh, I didn't get up till 2 today. I'm like, you didn't wake up till 2 o'clock? Like, what are you doing, right? So that's where, coaching can take a different form, right? And, help people even more.
But that's what coaching should have always been, right? And I think people, even in the last few years, if anyone would ever message me and didn't understand that, I would try to educate them on that. Like, you're not understanding what we actually provide.
Yeah.
Like, you're coming to me or coming to Hammer Fitness or coming to one of our businesses thinking, like, I want the program. I want, but that's not what we actually do. So you're a bit confused. And it is confusing because in the industry, there are different people offering different things.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that they're all providing the same thing. Like, just because another coach's client gets on stage, it doesn't mean we're in the same industry. We're not competing for the same thing. We just the end game happens to be the same. They're stepping on stage, but the process is very, very different from one another.
Yeah, you see that, right? You see the athletes that, take it to that next level, and I think it's that evolution of getting past level 1's like meal plan workouts, then level 2's getting your head in the game, and then level 3's like really getting the whole thing. Like, when you see, someone saying, you probably get it all the time, right? Someone comes to you, I want to turn pro, I want you to turn me pro, but they haven't competed before, and it's like, okay, slow down, let's, how regimented can you be for an extended period of time without the pressure of trying to turn pro, right?
Yeah. Why do you even want to turn pro? What is it about? That means nothing, guys. Like, I'm just being honest with you. Having a pro card means absolutely nothing. It doesn't impress me. I can have clients win pro cards, and I don't even care because it has very little value to me. There are I place value in other areas of the coaching. And you know what? If my client went and won a show, won an easy show and beat nobody, well, like, yeah, you're a pro or you won the show, but like, that wasn't a win for me.
Yeah.
And by that same token, I could have someone that came third place, and I'm more proud of that because of the process that we went through to get there.
Yeah, that's super, super cool to say, right? Like, you can take someone, not to be like, this is going to sound bad, but like, take someone from nothing, basically, go through this entire process, whether it's 6, 10, 12, 13 months, and get third, and you're just like, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it depends how we measure, and unfortunately, we're always measuring things through the wrong metric. Like, we measure things like win, lose, but, like, if you come if you come second place at nationals, it's less impressive to the outside world than you winning an overall at a regional show. People that know nothing, right? They're like, wow, this guy won an overall. Yeah, but like, overall in like Markham, or overall in Mississauga, or overall in, wherever in Stratford. But like, you're talking about the person that came second in the country, but you're more impressed by the person that won an overall in like a small city. Yeah. Because you don't understand the context of the story.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's huge. I agree with you there for sure.
And I also think as a coach, if like, you need to understand where you place your value too, right? Yep. Because if I place all of my value simply on winning and losing, I'm going to sacrifice the quality of what I do for the end goal, right? That end goal is a byproduct of the work you're doing and the process in which you go through to get there. So if I put all my, place all my value into, okay, winning or losing, like, I'll end up doing things with clients that I probably shouldn't be doing to get them there in the short term, sacrificing the long run.
Yeah, and that's that's the next level of coaching too, right? Is understanding that, like you said, like an overall at a show of 50 people or a top 5 placing at a Canadian event with a couple hundred. Like when you look at it like that, then it's a no-brainer, right? So now with the shows obviously being up in the air for at least, like you said, a few months, what's kind of your mindset? What are you seeing from your athletes? Like, I'm sure similar to what I've seen myself, what I've seen with competitors is a little bit of disappointment, frustration, anger. But so did you see all that from your roster as well and your community?
I think, yeah, of course, and I think when someone's very competitive too, it's frustrating, right? Because I do have some pros that put everything on the line too, right? Yeah. So for them, it's, a lot of, even their income depends on it, right? Like their livelihood depends on it. So I do understand that. But I think what's reassuring or more comforting is that every single person's in the same boat. Like, it's not like we have people competing in like Italy and then, no one's competing here, or people are competing in the States. So I think we're all in the same boat, and it's just like a complete void for everyone. Yeah. And I think that's the more comforting part of it. But, like I've just been focusing more on the mindset aspect of things with our clients and continuously teaching them to think the right way and to be optimistic during these times and to be optimistic about, timelines and just be optimistic about everything. Like, this is a huge, huge learning curve for every single person, including myself. And it's like, how do we adapt during these difficult times? Like, if you just crumble now, everything you've been talking about was a lie. Yeah. Right? Like, now's the time you show me. Like, now's the time you show me all these positive quotes you've been posting, like what they really mean. Yeah. Like you've been talking about character, you've been talking about discipline, you've been talking about success. Like, now's where you get to show it, right? And I want to see it. So, I mean, we're probably going to look back on this in a year or two, and a lot of people are going to be making jokes and saying, I wish we can go back to that time where we didn't have to work, Yeah. And I think that eventually you're not going to, like, man, you didn't make a bit of money for some period of time. You're not going to remember these things in the cycle of your life, So yeah. I think that if it's not going to change the course of the rest of your life, you shouldn't give any time worrying about it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in, I think it was a podcast, you said that this is the time that if someone quits, they were looking for that scapegoat, right? They were looking, and this just happened to be it. Wow, COVID, I can't compete now, or I can't prep now. And you'd said, that's what you were looking for. You were looking for that thing that's now your reason that you can't go.
Yeah, like, and even take competing out of it. Like, now you don't even want to work at. So there's people that don't even want to do anything anymore. And it's like, man, like, so did you really love working out? Like, did you love the training, or did you love lifting weights? Because those are two different things, And I've always been a proponent of being physically active. I've never said that, CrossFit's better than X, or, group training is better than kettlebells and resistance training. Like, there is no better than anything. It's all relative to what you're doing. But at the end of the day, as long as somebody's being physically active, that's what our chemistry needs. That's what our physiology needs. That's what our psychology needs. So I think that if now you don't want to do anything because you don't have, the certain resource at your disposal, then you never really loved it in the first place. Like, and there's a lot of people that are like, what's the point now? Well, that tells me that, there's a point because you don't get to show it off. Yeah. Which means you were doing it for the wrong reasons to begin with. Like, this has been innately just a part of my life since I can remember. Sure, I may not be ripped all the time, but I still love training. I love training more than I love being ripped.
Yeah, I think, you're seeing it now, like, there's probably less fitness posts in general because people can't show the shredded pics or the people getting in ready for the stage. There's just less, like you said, if you can't post it, wow, what's the point? And it's sad because then, you're not loving training. You don't love the process of going through, being healthy and active, right? You're just looking for that admiration from peers.
And even when we think about that, like, I don't think we've been in this long enough for people to learn a lesson from this situation. No. Unfortunately, like, if everything changed and we went back to work tomorrow, I don't think anybody would have learned anything. I think it needs to go on longer for humans to really recognize, like, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and to really have a lasting change on our lives. Because we're still at the point where we're like, I can't wait to go back to the gym. You haven't reached that tipping point yet where you're saying, let me figure this out with what I have available, which means you're still in the old mindset of like, okay, when are we going back to the gym? If someone was to say, look, there's no more gyms anymore. The people love it and say, I'll figure it out now. So we haven't reached that point yet where people have said, you know what? Forget it. The gym's not going to open. It might not. Like, we need to go on a bit longer for people to make some sort of lasting change in their lives right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what do you think, like, psychologically is going to happen? Like, say this goes on, you know, what are we now? April, May, June, heading into summer. We're still, you know, in this situation of people not working, people having to be isolated. You know, we're missing human interaction on a day-to-day basis. Like, what do you hope people get out of this, and what are you maybe fearing that people might turn to?
Well, I think because of government bailouts, I don't think people are going to feel like in the next 4 months, even if this lasts the next 4 months, which I do think it will. I think it's going to last till about July.
Yep.
Right? I think the soonest we will go back to normal, which is not even really normal, is like July, August. Now, normal being, okay, we can go do things, but there's going to be a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think in July or August they're going to allow 1,000 people in the same room. That's not going to happen.
No.
I don't think in July, August, they're going to allow you to be able to fly anywhere you want to fly. Like, there's going to be so many restrictions still. So I think that the government, first of all, doesn't really know because they're just kind of figuring it out as we go. We've never had this happen. So, and I do think they're doing a good job with what they have, the knowledge they have available. Thankfully, we're not the first country to get it, so we can look at, you know, other countries like Italy and Spain and Iran and China to a degree and try to learn as much as we can from what they've gone through. So we're a bit ahead in terms of that, but we haven't even reached the peak yet. No. So we haven't reached peak numbers, which means things aren't going back to normal anytime soon if we haven't reached our peak numbers yet, because in order to get to the valley, we got to reach the peak. Right? So I think that right now, I'm not even focusing on that because there's no certainty in terms of answers. But at the same time, I'm not worried about when things go back to normal because I'm not focused on going back to normal. I don't care what normal is, whatever I have available, right? So, like, if all I have available right now is a pool of 100,000 clients in Canada versus the 1 million clients 6 months ago, well, along with those 100,000 clients, you know, when there was 1 million clients, there were 100,000 coaches. Now with 100,000 clients, there's only going to be 1,000 coaches. Just scale differently. So if you're the best at something, you're going to be the best, whether it's saturated or not. And we see it in the real estate market where, you know, there's so many real estate agents in Toronto alone, but how many of them are actually selling houses? Not many. So it doesn't really concern me because I think there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be, you know, a market of people that want what you have to offer. And more than anything, and something I'm always preaching is like, it's not like the value in anything that I do is not in what I'm doing. It's in myself. Like I can leave this industry today, go into a different industry and be very good at something because I've learned the skill set to be good. I didn't learn the skill to be good at fitness. I learned the skill to be good at whatever it is I apply myself to. And I think that's what we need to learn from this. As human beings, like what are you gaining from all of this? Like this is not like what is your end goal in life? Is your end goal to be comfortable and just live a life with no ups and downs? Because that's not living. So like you need to embrace these times, and I say that with especially people that own businesses. You know, if there are people that own businesses listening to this, like, are you only in it when the times are good? Because I'm in it when the times are good and the times are bad. Like I play the game when I lose and when I win, not just when I win. It's called being a sore loser if you tap out the minute you lose the game, you know? So it's part of it. It's part of the process. It's part of the game. And it's part of just, you know, being committed to whatever it is that you love doing. And if you're so able to quit something, well, you didn't really love it. Now, what I think people should gain from this, I think we should gain a better understanding of who we are and a better understanding of like why we make decisions in life. Because like now we're seeing what matters and what doesn't matter. Like you buying clothes, you buying cars, you're buying all these things that really have no value and they can't give you any true happiness, you know? And now I believe we're at the most primitive, closest to the most primitive point that we've ever been as human beings. So what are you so unhappy about? Like, this is what a human's supposed to be. We just evolved it into something that we believe. Like, we're not supposed to be flying places. We're not supposed to be taking trains. We're not supposed to be driving. These are things we made. These are things we made up. You know, we're not supposed to be wearing a new outfit every day. Like, at one point in time, like, humans were just putting a leaf over their dick, and that's what their outfit was, you know? So we've evolved so much, but who's to say that evolution is correct?
Yeah, I love that. I agree. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm hoping just in this whole thing, people just gain some value and like what's really valuable in your life, right? Like you said, like all the clothes and the cars and all this stuff. Like people aren't spending money now because they don't have it, so maybe they'll gain a perspective on buying things is really not going to bring them any more value in their life, right?
Well, especially things with money you didn't have. That's a big one, because now we've adopted the notion that you can use credit to buy things. And just because you can afford to buy it doesn't mean you should be buying it, because it's not money you actually have. So all we've done as humans is prolonged a life that's not authentic. Yep. Like you can go buy it, like you can, many people can drive a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Doesn't mean the reality is that you should be having one just because your credit or the loan allows you to do it. Right? Yep. So we're just pushing against this bubble, and at some point in time, the bubble has to burst.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's going to come back to, you know, you're not being able to put that out there and flaunt the Ferrari, for example, because you can't afford it or you can't buy it now. You can't post about it.
First place.
Exactly. Like you gotta, like you said, strip it back to like just a primitive. You know, you go through your daily life, living a simple life, and trying to do things. So
what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it, but the problem is people have tied their identities to things. Yep. You know, people have tied their identity to having a Ferrari, or people have tied their identity to, you know, looking a certain way, or you know, or having a pro card, or whatever, or being like a PhD.
Yeah.
We tie our identities to things. You know, we create and form identities, and that becomes hard for people to let go of it, because it's given us something, you know, some sort of feeling that we get in life, and that's the problem. We don't want to lose that or let go of it. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're not that complex. Mm-hmm. We make things more complex than they really are. But I think if we strip everything back, like, we have everything we need still.
Yeah.
You know, like you have a family, you have your body, your ability to move. You don't need much.
No. So where did you get that way of looking at things? Like, where was that cultivated? Were you really young? Have you worked on that? Were you big into like self-improvement when you were like a teenager? Like, where did it come from?
Like, since I can remember, even in high school, you know, there's always like groups of people. There's like, you know, the Asian guys, the brown guys, there's like the black guy, like everyone's like a group, right? Yeah. Like, especially where I grew up, it was like that. So, and I had never really identified with any group. I was like, man, I'm a lone wolf. That's just who I am. Like, I'm not going to be a part of you guys and do the things like, you know, a certain group of people were like stealing and certain group of people were fighting. It's like, man, like, I'll fight you if I want to fight, or I'll steal if I want to steal. Yeah, but like, I'm tied to this group just because that's what we do, you know? So I've always felt like intuitively and innately that's not who I am. I've always just been like, okay, let me do the right thing. And I think by nature, human beings have that within us, you know, the ability to know when something feels good or doesn't, or when something's right or wrong, you know, when we're harming others. So we already know the answers to things, you know? And like, for me, it was simple. Like, even in terms of buying things, like if I can't afford it, why would I buy it? Yeah. That's not my money. Like, just because I use someone else's money, credit, that's not my money. You know, there is a time and there's a place for it, I think, in business. But, you know, if you're gonna take a line of credit or take a loan to buy things in your life, well, then you probably shouldn't be buying those things. Yeah. You know, just because life allows you to do it, it doesn't mean that you should be doing it, right? Because you didn't earn it yet. Yeah. You haven't deserved it yet. And I've always lived my life based on that, like, a law of cause and effect. Like, I can get this because I deserved it. But, like, now we're bypassing that process, getting it without deserving it. Yeah. And as a result of that, like, we're all just like competing with one another in a life that's not even truly authentic. Like, now, like, you know, I mentioned in our podcast yesterday, I said, you know, like, girls will get implants now because maybe, and maybe a lot of girls don't even want it. I don't know the answer to that, but maybe a lot of women don't even want that. And then younger women are coming up now and saying, well, like on social media, everyone has it. Maybe I feel the need that I have to have it. And you can get a loan. You can finance it. So you can go and do it and not even have to have the money to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's causing not only like economically a lot of problems, but I think socially and culturally, it's causing a lot of issues with people because now we're all competing and we're able to do it. But at the end of the day, we don't really know who can afford the Ferrari and who can't. Like, I don't know, can you afford the Ferrari or can you not? You know, if we take this back to the animal kingdom and like lions, well, like the lion that gets to choose the mate is the one that's the killer.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, we know who the killer is because are they willing to kill or not?
Yeah.
There was no line of credit to, or loans to be able to, for the lion to say, well, I got us some food.
Yeah.
For the food.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've manufactured a society where you don't need to be the killer. You don't need to have earned things in life, but you can still get the outcome. And that's why I always believe, stop focusing on outcome of things. Even in my coaching, I've always spoken about that. Don't focus on outcome, because being outcome driven is never the long-term solution to anything. Being process oriented is.
Right. No, that's huge. I think just talking about the whole social media and seeing, the Ferrari and that kind of stuff, I think that's huge in our kind of landscape of society right now. And I think it's a huge issue, right? Because you can see, like you talked about, girls seeing, all these girls now with implants and, oh, maybe I should have them too, but you don't know if they can afford it. The guy with the Ferrari, like people, I remember reading a thing, people were posting photos at car dealerships beside the car and then posting it, letting people believe that they bought it. And then there was this huge thing where people were getting charged with trespassing at car dealerships. Like, it's just crazy.
Well, I saw the other day, like a top competitor has a Lamborghini, and he's posting that he's selling his ebooks now for $5. So, like, you have a $400,000 car, but you're selling ebooks for $5, and you had like 30 comments on it. So I can't imagine that many people are buying your $5 ebook.
Yeah.
But the numbers don't add up here. A guy driving a $500,000 car is not selling $5 ebooks to 30 people.
No, that math doesn't work.
Yeah, like, so there's something wrong with this math. Like, it's all that tells me is you're leasing everything. You're financing everything. You don't actually own any of these things. And my issue with that, to each their own, but my issue with that, now we create a culture and a society where we're all competing with that. Like, we're all competing against that. So now you have like an 18-year-old kid coming up saying, I want to be like that, because that's what in his mind or her mind they think success is.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like, if you look at me, you don't know if I have money or don't have money. I don't show anything. I don't dress like anything. Because none of those things matter to me. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't place value in those things. I place value in the process of what I'm doing. I don't care about a Ferrari. I don't care about, having, $1,000 shoes. Those things aren't the things that are going to bring me fulfillment. I had a watch that was $10,000. I will never wear it again. Yeah. Those things, that was like a dumb purchase when I was younger. But I realized that these things aren't, like, that's not what's truly fulfilling me, and that's not what is truly fulfilling anyone. There's nothing wrong with having them if you can afford them, but that's not the true meaning of happiness. That's not the true meaning of being fulfilled, and I think now we've hit the wall where, if you've been lying, because essentially if you've been buying things you can't afford, you've been driving cars you can't afford, leasing, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini you can't afford, essentially it's a lie. What is a lie? It's like you're not telling the truth, and why do we lie to people? We lie because we're afraid of consequences. That's the only reason why you lie. Because if I tell you the truth, there's some sort of consequence. If it's like, I'm lying to my girlfriend, well, it's I don't want her to leave me, or I don't want her to be mad at me, whatever. It's a consequence of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, when we lie, is that we're afraid of the consequence, right? So we try to avoid it. So now everyone has to face those lies and confront those lies. Finally, like, man, I really can't afford this car, which I probably shouldn't have bought it in the first place. And that's a very hard realization for people, because that's when your identity fails to meet with your reality.
Yeah.
And actually that's one of the main causes, or one of the main reasons why people come to this point of committing suicide, is when the reality fails to meet with their identity, or who they created in their mind of who they thought they were.
Yeah. No,
so I've always tried to live as close to being as human as I possibly can, and being as just authentic to being human as I possibly can, because these things mean nothing to me.
Yeah, that That makes sense. So moving forward, so people have an opportunity right now. They've got 3-4 months maybe that they can really make some positive change mentally, all spiritually, all that kind of stuff. Like we have an opportunity where there's no excuses because we have nothing but time. A lot of people aren't working. What do you suggest people do to start making these changes to, get this whole identity thing figured out and figure out what life actually is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people still feel like they don't have time because, if for me even, I realize like, man, even now with less work to do, I'm still on social media so much. What a waste of my time, right? So like, was I actually busy? No, I probably wasn't as busy as I thought I was. I was wasting time. That's number one. I think the first few weeks of this, it's like kind of like in shock or in denial. I think now people are starting to realize like this is real, and it might not be changing anytime soon. And that's okay. The first few weeks of something like cool, like you're just kind of like enjoy it or like fight it. But now like come to that realization and make the most of the situation, and I think for me, I can only speak for myself. Like I'm just really reflecting on like all these things that I've been doing. Have I been truly passionate about it? That's number one. I have to make sure that everything I'm doing, I'm passionate about it. Because imagine all these years I've been doing all this work in my industry and for my work, and then it's all taken away, so to speak. And then I realized like I wasn't even like I can't even spend money. Yeah. I can't even open my gym to people. I can't, drive my car anywhere. I can't do any of these things. And like, what did I work all that time for if I didn't love it? Yeah. Essentially, I worked for free if I didn't love it. Yeah. And the same is true for the rest of your life. Like when you die one day, you would have worked your whole life doing something you didn't even love, which means you worked for free because all you did was buy things you didn't care about or save your money, which in the end of it, it's the same thing. You didn't spend the money, therefore you work for free. Right? So for me, it's really reflecting on like, what am I really passionate about and what is it that I want? Because take away money right now, which we've done, would I still be doing what I'm doing? Yep. Right? And if the answer is no, it's time for you to make a change because as you can see, even if you're doing something you're not passionate about and you're making money from it, it can all be taken away from you. Yeah. So you may as well be doing something you are passionate about and risk failing and risk having it being taken away. That's most important for me. Like the realization I came to in this situation is like, I don't ever want to work and I'm already pretty good at this, but I want to make sure nobody I ever work with again in my life is somebody that isn't true to my values. Like there's zero tolerance for that. Yep. I don't want to bend on anything. I don't want to sacrifice and compromise my own happiness for the sake of $1. I don't want to do that ever again in my life. And I've done that in my life. So that's very important for me, I think. So you have to come to that realization of like, what's important to you if money was out of the picture. And I think we all need to do that. And then like in your life, what can you cut out? Declutter your life. What can you get rid of? What are the things that don't matter? What are the things that you've been investing in or buying into that had no value to you ever?
Yep. No, that's huge. I agree. That's awesome. So coming back, we'll kind of wrap this up with back to the athletes, because that's what probably the majority of the people watching this video are. What are you suggesting for competitors moving forward, like that you're working with? If maybe they had shows within the next, 4 to 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, maybe competitors that were Olympia bound, which is totally up in the air right now. What are you kind of working with right now?
The people that want to do it by now have figured it out, and they're still going.
Good.
I think we've lost, everyone in the industry has lost people that don't want to do it, and that we're not truly 100% about it. And that's not for everyone, because, there are some people that just really don't have the money to do it. So it's understandable. But, we've lost some clients that didn't have the money, but they're still going. Or we worked something out with them that, to make sure that they're still going. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a guy that wants to give discounts because it devalues what I do. But I have no issue continuously helping some people I've been working with because I understand their situation, their circumstance. It's not about money for me, but I still want to help people. Yeah. So it's not just like, I really respect and appreciate that people have been clients with us for 3, 4, 5 years, and like now it's just a difficult time. No problem, man. Like we'll figure it out. It is what it is. At the end of the day, I don't want to sit around doing nothing anyways. So, love the work that I do. So, we'll figure it out. But, so we kind of, by now you figured out who's working, who's not working, who's has access to a gym or doesn't, like their own weights and all that. And really, we got to think, like, competing is first of all, having a coach is a luxury, right? It's not like, it's like if we have to choose between food, water, and coach, you're going to choose food and water.
Yeah.
Then having a coach for a fitness competition is like super luxury. So I understand it too. But I think that it's fine. Competing isn't the priority. Like, I see some coaches lying to their clients. Like, yeah, there's going to be a show. There's going to be a show. Like, I tell my clients straight up, man, like, the shows are canceled. And like, they'll tell me, no, it still says they're doing it. I'm like, trust me, it's not happening.
No.
I can keep taking your money, and I would love to keep taking your money up until the time they announce it. But I don't want to lie to you. Like, I know deep down there's going to be no show. So let's just like stop bullshitting and let's stop wasting time dieting down, because like what's the point of continuously dieting and then the show's canceled?
Yeah.
Let's use that time wisely. So I personally think that if this goes on long enough, goes into like midsummer, there's going to be no shows at all in 2020.
They'll cancel the whole thing.
Like, I think if this goes on till August, like, there's going to be no shows. It's not realistic, because we need 12 weeks from the date a show is announced for people to diet.
Yeah. And
also, competing is a byproduct of working out. So if people haven't been working out, there's going to be no shows.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's also a risk for promoters to put on a show and have no one show up. So I think the longer this goes on, the more there's going to be less chance that there's going to be shows for this season, which is okay. This is part of life, guys. Are you trying to win in 2020? Or are you trying to win? I want to win big in the grand scheme of my life. I don't want to win big 1 year of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to measure the success or the failures of my life by 1 year or 1 day. I measure it based on what I've done over the course of my life, and that's more important. So if I have a shit year financially, or if I have a shit year, in terms of competing, it is what it is. I'm going to get better next year because I'm going to learn from it. And that's all I'm always doing, is adapting to whatever's in front of me. That's the way I've always lived my life. And if that means tomorrow we have to walk everywhere, I'm going to do that. If that means tomorrow there's no such thing as gyms, we're going to figure out a solution. And that's all it is. And you need to be optimistic. And that's what I've been telling people. It's all just about being optimistic and having faith and having belief in yourself that whatever it is that you're going through, that you'll figure it out.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. Any last closing words to get people through this tough time? Last bit of knowledge you can bestow on them?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think, being positive and being optimistic, and also understanding the impact that you have on people around you is very important. Like, we all have family, maybe a brother, a sister, kids, like uncle, whatever it is. I think it's just very important that you understand the impact you have on people around you, both good and bad.
Yep.
And I think now that we all have more free time, it's very important that you're checking up on people around you and, just sending people messages and making sure they're doing okay. Because it is very difficult for a lot of people. And, the age group that I am concerned about is like, millennial, although I think I'm grouped into millennial. I think the lower end of millennial, I think it's very difficult. Imagine coming out of school, college, and like, this is your life. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is like a confusing time. Like, maybe you're not making money. Maybe, so it is a very difficult time for a lot of people. And I think we have to be sensitive about that. And I think that, you need to do your part as a human being to help and check up on other people. And I think if everyone takes that responsibility upon themselves, we're just, we'll get through it a lot easier. And we'll all get through it, at the very least. The last thing I want to see is people, harming themselves and, having whole other problem, because, like I said, there's a health issue we're struggling with now. There's an economic issue, and then there's going to be a mental health issue that comes along with all of this.
Yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. I'm finally glad to get you on the podcast, man. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, even though it might not be as busy as you want it.
Yeah. I had to fit you into the busy schedule, man.
Yeah, for sure. All of Amer's social media will be linked down below, so you can give him a follow, even though he might not be posting as much, because that's a waste of time, right?
Yeah, I post.
All right, man. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Leroy.
Have a good one.
Bye.